Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Get ready to catch up on all things farmers market pros with us. During this season of Tent Talk, we're bringing you episodes about growing where you're planted, maximizing the success and impact of your market or market business by focusing on your own resources and the power of the greater farmers market community.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by Manage My Market, an online platform assisting markets in more than 30 states with vendor registration, stall assignments, and interactive map creation, invoicing, permit tracking, and more. For more information on how to consolidate all your market management tasks in one place and a free demo, click the Manage My Market logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. We're talking in this newest season about growing where we're planted. That means making use of the resources within our own organizations and community, using existing coalitions and developing new ones to help our markets and businesses thrive and grow. Today, we're chatting with Maggie Funkhouser, director of the North Carolina Farmers Market Network, about the value of state market associations.
I'm so in favor of a strong state market association. Currently, about 50% of U.S. states have active farmers market associations. That means the rest of y'all get hopping. Another half dozen or so have related organizations that provide a hub of some sort for farmers market operators, in addition to whatever their main function is. Typically, it's a food access group or agricultural extension that's working to actually include farmers markets in their work, but they're not technically just aimed at farmers markets. It's kind of a sideline. Some of the actual associations have been operating for 30 years or more. Washington State, New York State, both of those are at 31 years. Illinois Farmers Market Association and the very active Minnesota Farmers Market Association have been around for a couple of decades, and their range of benefits and services vary widely from one to another, but they're all focused on providing support for farmers markets, whether it's in the form of a directory, education, or other benefits.
So many ways to do it, too. So I'm excited to talk to Maggie. So let's hear more about the North Carolina Farmers Market Network from our guest, Maggie Funkhouser. Welcome to Tent Talk.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Big fan of the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, we always like to have guests on that are listeners as well. It kind of brings us closer to like the void that we think we're speaking into sometimes as podcasters. It's nice to talk to folks that are listeners too and doing such great work in the farmers market world. Really nice to bring your perspective here. So before we get into what you do at the network, just a little like kind of recap of your personal and professional background and like how does that relate to farmers markets?
So I am now the director of NCFMN, North Carolina Farmers Market Network. I was the program coordinator. I started that last summer. And before that, I actually served on our board. I was the board chair and kind of like moving back in time, I was on the interim board before we kind of like officially gelled, and I was part of the steering committee. And before that, I was part of the kind of proto-NCFMN, which was a series of Zoom calls for farmers market managers during COVID. And I was a farmers market manager at a kind of big farmers market in a small town in central North Carolina. Those calls were so valuable to me. And I remember just loving being able to connect with other farmers market managers. And at that time, I was when COVID hit, I was kind of new to being a farmers market manager. And so just having that connection, I just really got behind it and was like, what do I need to do to make this bigger, to get people more connected, and to help this steward this organization's growth. So I've been kind of part of lots of little steps along the way for NCFMN.
Maggie, what did you do before you managed the farmers market? Did you grow up shopping in farmers markets or did you shop at them personally? And what else have you done just before that?
What else have I done?
It's just always curious to see which worlds people come from into farmers markets.
I love that. Yeah. I loved farmers markets, and I actually got into farmers markets from working in restaurants and in food kind of adjacent places. So I worked at a farm-to-table restaurant in my town for many years, and I got to kind of meet some of the farmers I actually ended up working with at the farmers market through that. And I did things like manage a culinary garden. At one point, I thought I wanted to be a baker. This is like pre-COVID, like pre-baking phenomenon. I thought I wanted to be a baker, so I did that for a few years, but I couldn't take the overnight shifts. And then I did kind of all manner of things. I taught at a community college at one point, but really, I just loved working with food. And I loved working in restaurants. I loved waiting tables. I loved telling people about food. In the garden, I loved extruding that process. And then I got to, I felt like when I got my market manager job that I had landed the jackpot. I was like, I made it. I'm working at the farmer's market. And in our town, the farmer's market is very well known. And so I just felt so it was just such a special experience for me. And I'm sure your listeners, your market managers can relate to that feeling.
I love it. Both Bridget and I came from restaurants, owning restaurants, managing restaurants, working in restaurants. And I personally think it's just when I'm looking at job applications, I oftentimes will go back to somebody and say, I don't see anything on your resume that says retail or restaurant. Is that because you've tidied this up because you think you're applying for a professional position? Have you ever been in a retail or restaurant position? Because that, to me, is going to be more important.
Yeah. And honestly, working in restaurants was what I felt one of the things that best prepared me for being a market manager, because you have so many things going on all at the same time. And you have to say like, okay, I got to do these 4 things first. And then before I can do anything else. And that kind of like prioritization. Yeah, I definitely agree.
It's such a good skill building for what we do as market managers. Definitely. Yep. So you did all that and you came into the director role at the North Carolina Farmers Market Network. When did that start? Like, what's the history of the network?
So I kind of talked about the calls for farmers markets during COVID.
Yeah.
That was kind of the catalyst, I guess you could say.
Oh, so that's what brought everything together.
That's kind of what brought everything together, because during COVID, market managers were just like, what is going on? And I mean, you all, of course, know this. We all went through this. We lived through it. We continue to live through it in some ways. And we had 3 really important partners kind of come together: the State Extension, Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, and RAFI USA. Those last 2 are nonprofits. And they kind of came together to support farmers market managers. And as we had these calls, which were initially weekly, which is crazy to think about right now, things started to relax a couple years in. And then we kind of realized that market managers really loved this. They really liked getting together regularly for a call. They liked having a place they could ask questions. Everything from like, how does my market get authorized for SNAP to how do I handle this kind of sticky situation that I don't really know, I've never come up against, and I don't know how to handle it. So we started these monthly calls, and those are still one of our probably most popular member benefits, is these kind of monthly calls for our market managers, where we hop on and we now have an education and programming committee, and they come up with monthly call topic themes, I guess you could say. So last month we talked about accessibility at farmers markets, and in the past we've talked about managing your finances, bookkeeping type stuff. We've talked about a farmers market week, obviously planning events, that sort of thing. And so conflict resolution. So all sorts of topics we try to bring up that are for these very niche roles we have as market managers.
A monthly call. This is amazing. So that's so interesting, because we've heard that from a lot of folks that talked a lot with their fellow market managers during COVID, either on a Zoom or in a chat or whatever. And then just to continue that, I feel like is so important, and such a great idea that was kind of the catalyst, and everyone realized that this is really an important thing that we're doing, not just during a crisis, but just as an ongoing kind of touch point to do that.
Yeah, we're introducing that at Farmers Market Forum, but our weekly newsletter on Substack is now doing live calls once a month. And I've facilitated, actually, I know Maggie partly from there. I've facilitated the Farmers Market Coalition call once a month for state leaders, state and network leaders. And then there's calls for other communities of practice. Our Pennsylvania organization, which is not really a farmers market organization per se, but it's a little outshoot of the Pennsylvania Extension program that Brian leads, and they do a monthly call now. And it's invaluable for new managers, for old managers with new problems, sometimes just to kind of console each other and give each other a virtual hug if something crazy's going on.
For sure. And I think these topics that you're talking about too, it kind of resonated when we started the podcast. We're like, what are we going to talk about for like years and years about farmers markets, we're going to run out of topics. But I'm sure you've probably found as well, there's endless topics you can talk about with farmers markets. And especially when you're getting
Definitely.
folks that are together in the same state or the same area, just with like dial it down into those niche kind of things that are happening, either challenges or tools you can offer or talk about. That's great. I love this. I'm thinking of ideas we can do here in our state, but that's awesome. So you were getting together, having calls, and kind of continue on these calls. How's everything funded, and what's the structure now of the network?
Great question. So now we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We incorporated in 2022, got our tax exempt status 2023. And, kind of in the building off of that energy I kind of mentioned from these COVID calls, we decided to apply for an FMPP in 2022. So we applied and were awarded a capacity building grant through FMPP. And that kind of like was the perfect boost that we needed to get going. And it really allowed us to truly like build our capacity. Like we were able to hire our first staff. That was Nora Rodley, who is also friend of the podcast, friend of Farmers Market Pros. When we were awarded that with a fiscal sponsor, and so we got to work with a fiscal sponsor to kind of help us get our 501c3 status. Incorporating is its own adventure, and the IRS is its own adventure. And so we were very lucky to have those partners, those nonprofits and state extension I mentioned, to kind of help support our steering committee as that was being formed, our interim board, our new board, because there are all these things that we kind of realized I remember being on the steering committee and having all these discussions about, we want to be a nonprofit. We want to be a 501c3. Okay, do we want to be membership based or non-membership based? And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is like an endless decision-making tree, right? Of like, what do we want to do and how? And none of those are necessarily good or bad, right? We just had to kind of figure out what was best for our state. And we ended up being a membership-based nonprofit. And that is working out very well for us. I think that's the perfect structure for our state organization.
And I think that creates some more secure longevity for these organizations. I know that there are some state associations and various other kinds of nonprofits that really seem to rely on getting a new grant every couple of years to keep them going. And especially in today's climate, I mean, I don't know how sustainable that is. So the fact that it is membership based, I think is really important. I personally find that the most effective way to run a state association. And also because it makes your members realize that there's real value and there's real work being done in order to run this and to offer the things that you do.
Yeah. And we get a lot of our members, both voting and non-voting. We have kind of like voting members who are like farmers markets, and non-voting who are organizational reps, at-large individuals, and farmers too. Farmers can be a non-voting member. And all of those are welcome on our calls, both voting and non-voting. And I've found that we have many committees too for our board, and we get a lot of involvement from market managers around the state who they're like, oh, well, I'm interested in marketing. I'll be on your marketing committee or that sort of thing. And so it really feels like, even though we're very new, it still feels like we have ways for folks to participate very actively, and that feels really good.
That's awesome. What types of things are you voting on? What's the business that you're doing in the network?
Oh, great question. So this is kind of like bylaws formation territory, but so our voting members elect our board. We have a nominating committee. Our executive committee works with board nominations. So the voting membership, they elect the board, and they conduct any business that needs to happen. So our bylaws stipulate that they need to vote on any bylaws amendments. For example, we have we have our annual meeting in early February, and we have some bylaws amendments that we just need the membership to vote on. And we usually use that as an opportunity to inform the voting membership and non-voting membership, the membership at large, about, what the board has been doing, our financial report, the committees and opportunities that are coming up. But I would say for where we are now, that's kind of like where the voting membership comes into play, is like at an annual meeting, electing new board members, and anything else the bylaw stipulates that we need a membership vote on.
I love that. And it sounds like you're involving your members in committees, whereas many associations, they ask for board members to join committees, but they don't actually reach out to their members to be on active committees. And I think that's so engaging to actually, for one thing, you really know what your members want and need. And for the other thing, they just get more committed if they actually have something to do. It's like having volunteers come to the market, but you don't really have a job in mind for them. That's frustrating for them. But having something for your members to do and a way to feel like they're influencing the organization, I think is really important.
100%.
How many people do you have on your board?
We have currently, I think we have nine members on our board, 9 to 10.
How many members are in your network?
We just hit 100, which is very exciting. So I think we're at 102,
That's
102
awesome.
members, which is very, very exciting. And we think from our research and inventory of farmers markets across the state, there are about 200 farmers markets in North Carolina. So we would love to get them all, obviously, but work in progress.
That's great, though, that you have, sounds like, somewhat slightly over half of the markets in North Carolina are signed up, and it's an active kind of sign up. So that's impressive.
Yeah.
Every year we get more and more, and word of mouth has been really powerful for us. So if one market has a good experience, they're typically kind of buds with other markets in their county or region, and so that's been really great for us, especially if they can speak highly of monthly calls. And we do a lot of gatherings in person. This is a very popular thing that we try to do as regularly as possible. So, Kat, you came to our first conference last year, which was just incredible. Very, very great experience, I think, for all of our managers. And kind of in addition to that, we try to do regional gatherings at least once a year. So our regional representatives, our board contains regional representatives, which I don't think I mentioned, but we have 5 seats on our board, and each of those is from a different region of the state. And so part of what they're in charge of is doing at least one regional gathering a year. And that is a great opportunity for managers in a geographically close proximity to one another, if that makes sense, to kind of meet and connect.
Yeah, I've been really impressed and curious about the regional aspect of your association and your membership. I was at the first statewide conference, and I have to tell you, this is why I wanted to talk to the North Carolina Farmers Market Network. They're not a group that's been around for 30 years. They're a relatively new organization, and they were really new when I spoke at their conference. And that conference was so well organized, and the members were so excited about every session. And they did a roll call to take a vote. I'm not sure if it was about bylaws or maybe it was a board election. But they did a roll call where they were calling off markets, and I could not believe how many markets were in the room and were standing up to vote. It was just incredibly impressive in terms of an engaged membership. Really amazing. And I wonder if the regional aspect of your association is part of what creates that, because in my mind, at least, North Carolina is not a huge state, but you've still got all these chapters that are kind of different regional setups for people that are very close to one another. We're, in fact, stealing your idea from that conference. I think I'm going to pass out Mardi Gras beads for certain parts of the country so people can find each other at the Intense conference this year.
I love that.
This year's mini conferences where I think you're doing state conferences every other year. Is that correct, Maggie? And then you're doing regional conferences this year where each section is getting together, even though they're not having a statewide gathering on this off year. But it's just amazing to me that you've thought about doing this sort of chapter level thing with your association and how you're governed. And I'm imagining you find that very effective.
Definitely. I think it's effective both from a board standpoint, because the board can really, they have to have a representative from each part of the state, which I think is good. Otherwise, you can end up with reps who are like board members and reps who are from like maybe the urban centers or from the more well-resourced parts of the state. And we really wanted it to be like truly statewide. Even if a region only has 10 total farmers markets, for example, we still want that represented. And I think that kind of the regional gatherings we get very good feedback on, because you get market managers who are friends, who are colleagues. And if you're new, you can kind of buddy up with someone and get to know someone who's, less than an hour from you, be able to visit them. I know when I was a manager, that happened to me. I would always invite new market managers to come visit our weekday market, for example, just to get a sense of what was going on. Because if you're a new market manager, you're like, I don't understand what's happening to me. Yeah. And so our 5 regions, we have a Western region, North Central, South Central, Northeast, and Southeast. And we actually based that on the state extension map. They have regions in our NC State Extension. And so we just kind of borrowed those because we thought they had it figured out. So, and we still do that. I think our bylaws say that the board can change those regions if they want to, but the board hasn't. They've worked quite well. And typically each region has, like an urban like a big urban county in it, or several, and lots of rural counties. And it just allows kind of that representation, I think.
Well, and I think North Carolina too has some really vibrant urban areas, but you also have some very rural areas, very undeveloped areas too, right?
Definitely. Yeah, especially in like the eastern and also western parts of the state. You can have big agricultural based counties that maybe have a farmer's market, maybe they want to have a farmer's market, or the farmers are going to another county to their farmer's market. But North Carolina is a heavily agricultural state. That's a big part of our state economy. And farmers markets, I mentioned we have over 200. That's a lot for a state with 100 counties. I mean,
Incredible.
it's a lot of farmers markets.
Yeah.
And so I think that, North Carolinians, I think they know that connection to agriculture. And in all likelihood, they have neighbors or friends who are farmers. So I think, North Carolina being able to showcase its agricultural products, whether it's those roadside stands, farmers markets, mobile markets, that sort of thing, I think is a very important part of North Carolina's kind of fabric across the state.
Yeah, it's amazing. So with that big range of different kind of markets, how are your membership fees based? Are they based on market size or annual budget or?
Farmers market fees, those have different tiers and we base them on market size. So we have, I think we call it BIPOC and culturally specific, and that's regardless of size. And then we have 20 or fewer vendors, 21 to 50 vendors, and then 50 plus vendors.
Right.
And so we base it kind of on the market size.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
From
sense.
that standpoint.
And just to clarify who qualifies for membership. So you said it can be markets, but it can also be, and I know you have a membership for kind of related associations and that kind of thing. Proud to say we just signed up. But you also said you take farmers as members. Do you have a category that's non-farm vendors?
I think our category is farmers, but I would maybe extend that to vendors more generally.
We think vendors are the overlooked population of markets. There's a lot of associations and conferences and things that don't really do anything for non-farm vendors. It's one of the things we try to do. We often speak to people making packaged groceries and that kind of thing. But I know for associations, that's not always an obvious thing since grant money comes from the USDA. And a lot of times the definition is all about the farmers being there, which is certainly, that's who should be front and center. But I think nowadays, while we compete with grocery stores, that non-farm vendors are also important. And I don't see too many associations doing much with them. The Minnesota Farmers Market Association does a lot of education for vendors. And there's a few others, I think, that do, but not too many.
Yeah, our state association in California, we were just having this discussion too about how do vendors fit into this because we kind of extend to farmers. But yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of space in these associations or in these groups, and vendors don't seem to really group up themselves very often. But yeah, we're trying to figure out how to fold them in a little bit more just so they can also, grow and get these tools and be successful and learn more about how markets operate and what makes them run, better so that they can do better business in them.
So what other it looks like you do a good job of laying out your membership benefits so that people understand why they would want to be a member of your association. Just briefly, what are some of the other benefits that folks get from joining?
I think one of our taglines for membership is a voice and a vote. It's very civic. It feels very civic in nature, but I mentioned our monthly calls, any opportunity for networking. It's actually one of the reasons we chose the word network for the name of our organization is very important. So we have those monthly calls. As part of those, we also have running notes that we've been keeping since the early times. And so it's like a whole archive of everything we've ever talked about, which is pretty cool. We offer lots of networking opportunities. So, I mentioned the regional gatherings, conferences have a discounted rate for members. Almost everything that we offer that is payable will offer a discount for members for. And one of those is a new market manager certificate course, which is in conjunction with the North Carolina State Extension. And we're really thrilled to be launching that this year. It's our very first year doing it. So if you sign up, please let me know how it goes. We piloted it last year. It was a great success. So looking forward to growing that. And that's discounted for members. And then the other big one is the complimentary membership to Farmers Market Coalition, FMC, and all the benefits that kind of come along with that.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Does your organization also facilitate dunkers at somebody else? And you can Is it Double Up North Carolina? I'm going to guess
It
what that acronym
is.
stands for. Yeah, that's good.
Yes, you got it. Double Up North Carolina, aka Dunk. North Carolina, big basketball state, so we had to give a little nod
Oh,
to basketball. Yes,
cute. Tar
thank you.
Heels.
Good
Yes,
job.
Tar Heel is great.
I had a sweatshirt that
Um,
I got at a thrift store that was the North Carolina Tar Heels when I was like in middle school. And I will never forget how many people were like, Tar Heels the whole time I was wearing it. And I was like, yeah, I just got it at a thrift store. But yes, I am aware.
You got to understand that Bridget and me, for that matter, although now that I'm in Philly half the time, I have to pay attention to team sports, but mostly we're a go sports.
Yeah, we're a go sports situation.
We're very literate about sports and things. So I'm
yes,
amazed
yes.
that you just pulled Tar Heels out of your pocket.
Well, I had that sweatshirt for so long. It was my favorite sweatshirt. And people are like, oh, big North Carolina fan. I'm like, yep. I was like 14.
Yep.
I'm like, yes, very, very much into North Carolina sports.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, you got it.
I love
Michael
that.
Jordan. I mean,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we started laying the groundwork for a program that we're calling Dunk. And Dunk is a pilot, which we have not started. We are trying to launch it, but need funding for it, as everybody needs funding for everything. And we kind of got into the Dunk space because we kept hearing from market managers that that was one of their biggest challenges in running their markets was their incentive funding for SNAP and EBT. I don't know about other states, but at least in North Carolina, we have several regional kind of collaboratives and coalitions that have very strong intermarket ties. But otherwise, a lot of markets are kind of on their own. And they're often competing with one another for funding for that sort of thing. And I mean, even for, $5,000 to run an annual program, that can feel stretched for their corporate sponsors nowadays. And so last year and the year before, we kept getting lots of feedback from market managers that this was something they really wanted to prioritize. And so we came up with a name, Dunk, and we started doing some research and groundwork for how to even launch something like this. And y'all probably know how many states already offer this kind of statewide double up incentive. And in fact, in North Carolina, all of our neighbors do. So Virginia, Tennessee, and South Carolina all offer statewide SNAP incentive programs. And so we kind of started dipping our toes into what that might look like on the administrative end, what it would look like, from a funding standpoint, what would the dollar amount be? Virginia was actually a really great partner for this. So shout out to Virginia Fresh Match. Thank you very much for taking my phone calls. And so we started gathering data. State Extension helped us gather some data for that too. And so, like I said, we haven't started, but we're laying the groundwork and we're really looking to make it a feasible program in the next few years. Like I said, we're still very a new organization. And so it's a real balance of that like slow growth. What would it look like to add $1 million suddenly in programming that we want to be prepared for that. We want to have the partners set up, ready to go. They have buy-in. They've told us what they need, and we've told them how we can respond. And so it's been a really wonderful experience for me in working with both different coalitions and individual markets across the state to see what they need. And so working with food policy councils and working with nonprofit collaborative organizations and that sort of thing has been just a really interesting part of the process. And so we're seeking funding in several different ways, but we were hoping to follow the Virginia model of getting some money from the state legislature. And so last year we actually endeavored in some active advocacy and dipped into some lobbying, which was new to me and a very interesting experience. And so we're still keeping our fingers crossed for that. North Carolina still does not have a budget. So hopefully we'll get a budget soon. And maybe Dunk will be in there. We work closely with North Carolina also has a food hub association, and they've been really wonderful partners in this work. Food hubs and farmers markets in North Carolina they go together like peas and carrots. They're just really really good partners for us, and we often work with the same farmers too. And so keep your fingers crossed for us on the dunk front. But we're continuing to lay our groundwork, do our research, get our numbers right, and make meaningful connections both with legislators and potential funders and our partner organizations.
That's great. It does sound like you're doing a good job of kind of wading into the data collection side, which of course supports advocacy so well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having the numbers saying that 102 farmers markets, which means whatever, 200 managers and 1,000, well, gosh, thousands and thousands of participants,
Yeah.
not to mention customers. That's a lot of power to have behind you when you go to somebody that worries about voters.
Definitely.
You know, we have that one funny voter niche of people that eat. And, it's a lot of folks to represent.
Just a few of us.
Just a couple.
Are you keeping track of sort of what the most popular membership benefits are and which ones people don't seem that concerned about and sort of adjusting as you go since you're so new? Are you adding benefits or are you deleting benefits that don't seem to be important?
We've added benefits kind of slowly over the years or adjusted the benefits. I think, just about every year we'll kind of look at, okay, what are we, what do we have the capacity to add? So, for example, our market manager certificate course, that's new this year. We added that discount as a benefit. And so for us, it kind of depends on our, what we're able to offer because we want to genuinely be able to follow through on the benefits that we're offering to our membership. And so if we say we'll do, consulting with you for free, I need to be able to truly say I have time to do that. And I'm currently a part-time executive or part-time director. So that can be difficult. So I would say we kind of reconsider every year, but our benefits have been pretty standard since we started 2 years, 3 years. But I would love, but I would love to be able to grow them to really learn what managers need and how we can offer it and kind of find that niche.
I think that the whole idea of a certification class is a huge growth path. So that's, it's wonderful that you're doing that. We're seeing people do good things there. I was actually on a call with y'all, with your organization, because I think it was right before the state conference, I'm trying to remember, but right after Hurricane Helene. And did you find that the association was sort of a hub for market managers, figuring out how to find people and what should they do next? And do you keep running a market when so many people are in this dire situation? What was that experience like?
That's a great question. We definitely had some of those calls, those monthly calls dedicated to support for our Western friends and neighbors and the markets that work there. And, we really were available to provide the resources that we could, but we in North Carolina had a couple nonprofits really step up for Hurricane Helene response in a way that we were not able to. And so we often would point people to them as our partners and say, Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, RAFI USA, they're doing what you want. And so we were not going to duplicate that. You should go to them. And, I know RAFI and CFSA, they were putting out just so much information, both for farmers and for kind of farmer adjacent, things like farmers markets. And so we did our best, especially with working in tandem with our regional rep to see what markets needed. But often, that Helene disrupted so many things that were just beyond farmers markets, right? And so, I would say we had a lot of communication with them, especially through our regional rep and the resources that we could provide. I think shortly after that, we did something on emergency preparation, which, this is beyond an emergency, right? Helene was like beyond an emergency, but oftentimes we really leaned on our partners who had folks on staff who they had already prepared materials. They were providing farmer support and kind of by extension market support. And so we pointed people a lot of times to them.
Yeah, and I think being a hub to point to other resources, people are just dealing with what's happening in the moment. Having somebody like the network that can pull together resources and say, here's the number. This is who you call. This is what you ask for.
Yeah.
It's just hugely important.
I'm taking lots of notes for my steering committee for our California list as well, because we're trying to think of membership benefits. And I think just being like an accessible point when there's a disaster, even if it's not something that maybe your association or your network can solve or like really dig in and help specifically with, just being a place where people can dial in and get pointed to the right direction or just find some kind of support or resource, I think is really an invaluable part of a membership group that you can be a part of.
Yeah, and I do, beyond an emergency situation, just on a regular day, I get a lot of inquiries and phone calls and texts like, hey, do you know how to do this? Like, I need some information on this. And it's like, sure, I can point you in the right direction. And that's like a lot of what I do is, you need assistance with, you really want to get authorized to accept SNAP. Okay. We don't have TA for SNAP, but I know who does, and I can point them to you, and it'll be a North Carolina-based organization. And in fact, I know the person who does it. And so I'm happy to like do a direct email connection so that you can like have a person. And so that's a lot of what I try to do is that kind of bridging, if that's the right term, and like kind of act as a hub, because I do think a lot of times people, like, especially if you're a newer market manager, or you want to do something new at your market, it's kind of like, well, where do I begin? And how do I even know if the things I'm reading are reliable, or if there's a person to ask? And, I just see an info at email, and it's like, oh, well, I'll point you in the right direction and give you someone to talk to who's a real human.
What a great resource, and just something that I think that all associations can kind of think about including in their membership benefits is maybe not something like so specific and tangible, but really being that bridge, I think as a market manager, is something that's so helpful, just getting that direct connection to somebody. Because even if you're an experience, like if you're not new at this and you've been doing it for a long time, just new things come up, or maybe you want to start offering EBT even though your market's been around for 25 years, but like, where do you start if you don't know where to go? So I think that's such a great resource to have as being a hub for your state. So it sounds like you're doing so much in really a short amount of time, but I think maybe it doesn't really matter how long you've been around, as long as you have this like passionate group of folks that are looking to get something done. I think COVID was such a catalyst to show us, what needs to be done and how we need to be brought together. So really, really impressed with your network and what is next. It sounds like Dunk definitely is something that you're really hoping and focusing on coming up, but anything else coming up, or what is next for the North Carolina Farmers Market Network?
Dunk's on the horizon, definitely. I mentioned our brand new market manager certification course, and we'll be offering it asynchronously year to year. We are doing our regional mini conferences in February, which we kind of touched on. Every year in August, we do a big push to celebrate Farmers Market Week, National Farmers Market Week. We're big fans of that here in North Carolina. And so we do trainings on how to do, if you want to dip your toe into hosting events, doing some sampling, inviting a legislator, getting a proclamation. We have whole guides for how to do that to really uplift the farmers markets in that area. So that's, I think, the first full week in August. And then kind of more intangibly, we're really working on that kind of sustainable capacity building piece. So, like Kat, you mentioned, like any organization, we want to have really sustainable sources for our funding and for our how we run our programming and that sort of thing. And we're still quite small, so we really want to grow very slowly and intentionally, and have things we can count on from year to year. And I think beyond that is like partnership building is kind of my intentional goal that I have set at the beginning of the year, is really like working to build robust networks kind of across sectors, across different missions, so that we can work for a more sustainable and resilient food system in North Carolina.
Oh, just that?
Just that.
Just a few things on your plate here.
Just a couple small things.
It's pretty busy for a part-time farmers market network leader. Are you still managing a market in the other part of your time? No,
I'm no longer managing a market. No, I stopped that in August. I left my market in August. But we are really lucky to have a tight, small but mighty team. So I have myself, we have a communications and events manager. Hi, Carol, she's probably listening. And we have Nora Rodley, who's our program coordinator. So we have the three of us. We contract out little small other projects oftentimes, but our biggest part of our team is our board right now. They are still working board, as you can imagine, being only a few years old. And like our boards and committees are doing work. Like they meet every month. They are really putting in the time and energy that we really need right now. And so I'm very grateful for everything that they do to support it, to be that part of our team.
Well, this is very inspiring. And I hope it's inspiring not just existing farmers market associations that might want to take a look at how cleanly the membership benefits are laid out on North Carolina Farmers Markets Network's website, what kind of things they're doing and offering their members, how much they're getting their board and their membership involved. But also, you out there that are in states that don't have an existing association, this has not taken 20 years to accomplish. The North Carolina Farmers Market Network jumped in, they put a lot of people together, they found some partners, and they launched an association. And you can too. Thank you so much for being with us today, Maggie. It was a lovely conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime I'll be back.
All right.
Well, yeah, we might have some good follow-up questions. I want to see how Dunk goes too, and keep an eye on that. And then, of course, market manager training. Very excited to hear feedback, go through that. And we love to see everything that you're doing. It's just been really nice to watch you kind of form and grow, and so much to do. So yeah, it was really nice to talk to you. I'm sure our listeners are going to appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was a real joy to talk with y'all, and I'll keep you posted on our many projects that we have going on.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, Maggie. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
I'm excited that we're going to be talking a little bit, at least in one of our breakout sessions, about forming really hyper-local associations and networks and groups. And also, especially if you don't have an existing association in your state, how to get that started. So, I mean, what we're trying to do, especially with the conference coming up in, just a couple of weeks, and also taking off the national conference in 2027, we really hope this year to push people out with a plan for getting together in their own regions and accomplishing things and getting involved and working together to get what farmers markets need and to keep us top of mind for legislators and for customers, of course, and for the people that can partner with us to keep us all really helping farmers and vendors sell more, helping market managers get support and get compensated. So hoping you'll be able to take that away from the Intense Conference coming up real soon, March 1st through 4th here in San Diego. Hoping to see as many of you as possible there. Still time to register. Come on over to intenseconference.com. A silly name because we always have to spell it. If you think about it, it makes sense. Intense. Get it? INTENTS conference.com. Come on over. Still time to register. Love to see you in San Diego soon.
Can't wait to see you all.
Thanks for listening today, and big thanks to Manage My Market for making farmers market managers' lives easier with a user-friendly online platform that makes it simple to manage vendor processes and mapping all in one place, and for supporting Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. For more information, click the Manage My Market logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. Please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow farmers market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields-White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in for another great episode.